Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with G.I. Joe, a real American hero, reinstated. Cobra Commander returned after a long exile and the dissolution of his organization, so the Joes are called back to active duty. However, Destro makes a power play and has his old cohort arrested by his own men. This was an episode of The Office, wasn't it? Issue 2's cover has him holding CC's tattered hood in triumph, with banners, soldiers, and Baroness behind him. Definitely eye-catching, and might intrigue someone that may have missed the first issue. We open to a Cobra agent in space, working on Gaijin, a satellite co-owned by two corporations, used to operate various wireless devices, but now will act as a Trojan horse to control the nanites the commander developed. Being from 2001, some terminology may feel a little dated, like wireless web messaging and PC phones. Even to me, who was a high school senior when this came out, it reads a bit weird. But changing vernacular happens in any language over time. A very smug Destro explains to Major Blood, Baroness, Mindbender, Zartan, Tomax, and Xamot that he's taken over Cobra and expects no objection. Zartan figures that since they're in his compound, he should be in control, but Destro shows them a video feed of the commander in a padded cell somewhere in Transcarpathia, having been made insane by use of the nanites.
And I demand the U.S. hand over 1 zillion pesos in mechanical gift certificates immediately, or innocents will pay dearly.
Sounds a lot like those scam calls where someone pretends to be the IRS threatening to arrest you over non-existent back taxes, but they'll forgive it so long as you send them a Home Depot gift card or something. Maybe the more bonkers Drapeface gets, the more he's ahead of the curve. With fraud and larceny, at least. The satellite won't be able to operate the nanites for another few days, so a short-range prototype is what's making all CC go cuckoo for evil puffs. And I guess the mites have a nostalgia app, because a splash page sees his delusion of his enemies and former cohorts in their 80s designs. Maybe the Joes are supposed to be action figure size as part of an in-joke, but everyone else looks like their typical selves. Except the twins, who are now 2 heads on 1 body.
Oh, I hate having 2 heads.
Yet no Lady J in sight. Now that is crazy! To prevent betrayal, Destro also infected everyone else when they met up 2 weeks ago. Except Zartan, so he can go. But if he chooses to stay, he will be infected so the nanites can cure his skin condition. Zartan's too macho to go to the skincare aisle and find some decent moisturizer. The seasoned Joes are introduced to the newbies they'll be commanding, sans Bazooka because he wasn't in combat shape, meaning he got fat. They have the rest of the day to get to know each other, some recruits honored to meet the likes of Rock and Roll and Shipwreck, and others getting injured for Jinx's amusement. Later, 9 stories underground, Duke has briefed everyone on the nanites, but warns they're potentially more dangerous than Cobra can handle. He also introduces a Joe Cam, a wrist-mounted communicator, GPS, heart monitor, data encryptor, and dispenser of nutrients right into the pores, for when you need your vitamins but your jaw's been broken by some goon's lucky punch. The device tested pretty well, except for those 7 people that got a rash from the beef stroganoff. Mainframe chimes in, apparently all man merged with machine by the looks of it. He's obtained schematics for the Dreadnought's main compound in the Florida swamps, with plenty of security surrounding the near impenetrable fortress at the center. They can't rain down artillery from the sky because someone apparently leaked info of Cobra's return, and it's causing something of a panic. Don't worry, a fake journalist who admits to not being a journalist but still wants to be believed like he's a journalist is already fabricating how this is somehow the fault of that politician you're supposed to hate, and how it all started with cartoon candy mascots that weren't designed sexy enough. At a press conference, the Defense Secretary gives the floor to General Hawk, with reporters asking what Cobra's agenda is, any remarks of their actions in Iraq, etc. What are your comments on the recent riots in Springfield?
Oh, God, can't this town go one day without a riot?
While not denying anything about Cobra's return, he reminds them that G.I. Joe is about more than just fighting one organization, but terrorism overall, and they're simply part of the presidency's stance in increasing military power. Few people actually remember George W. Bush's promise to fortify our laser gun reserves. We also get a couple panels in Scotland with an eye patch sporting dude named William. Significance to be determined later. The Dreadnoks are watching the same thing in Florida, now aware G.I. Joe is back. We get a formal appearance from Zartan's daughter Zanya, who orders that no one leaves, and they're on cold yellow until further notice. She tries calling her dad, telling him to check out Channel 9, but Destro interrupts, saying that he's to be contacted for emergencies and that regardless of who's on their way, the situation is under control. Others contact him to relay the same news, like the woman he had knock around the commander last issue, Lillian, aka Mistress Armada. And he's awfully affectionate with her, calling her his love and so on, which makes the twins curious how the Baroness feels. First Snake Eyes and Scarlet, now this. I wonder what other couples they decided to undo for funsies in this comic. Destro wants Tomax and Xamot to put $5 million into his arms company's Swiss account within the hour, which they'll do, and they want to let the Dreadnought Torch know that stock in his hard soda company has matched competitors, which has him excited for winning the jackpot. Zanya sarcastically calls him a business guy's name and tells him to get moving. And I am not going to mention said businessman's name, even though hardly anyone will see this episode, and I don't really have a joke for it. Because said businessman is an amoral, immoral, unethical, despicable, scheming, scamming, duplicitous literal traitor and literal antichrist that makes any one of Cobra's goons look like Ned freaking Flanders when he was written well. But I digress. Zanya's angry, not understanding why everyone's letting Destro take over. She's also got an appointment with some Hell's Angels and some Coast Guard to pay off, so her schedule is packed. She tells Torch to gather the Dreadnoks for when she gets back from talking to her dad. Meanwhile, the Joe commanders are testing out their recruits and being surprised by their skill. One guy manages to flip over Gung Ho out of a chokehold, a young woman shooting the eyes out of a Cobra crest with 6 bullets, 3 perfectly shot into each hole, with her eyes closed. Is she shooting via sonar, or is she related to Naruto Uzumaki, and even though her eyelids are shut, she can still somehow see perfectly? 2 pages is apparently enough training, since we jumped the next evening at 2200 hours, where Baroness is warning Destro about his macho act. He reminds her of their deal. She gets half his profits from Cobra, and she can move out of his castle in Transcarpathia.
Viggy, you have been a bad monkey!
A place with Carpathia in the name mentioned twice. I had to use that clip at some point. As Gung Ho leads several Joes through the swamp, Destro assures that Zartan has laid traps, and Armada is leading troops covering the area. Pouring herself a drink, Baroness calls his general a ghetto tramp, which,
Is that racist?
Yes.
A little bit.
No.
and that his affection for her jeopardizes their plans. She even claims he doesn't actually love her, and that while Destro is a brilliant tactician, he, Destro, in quotation marks, is not. Is she using a different pronunciation each time that's only noticeable when spoken, or has that wine already gone to her head? He calls their predecessors cowards, including her, and gets a smack to his metal face for it, which may have hurt Baroness more than him, but it's the principle, I guess. 3 hours later, the Joes silently take out various Cobra and Dreadnought goons, limiting use of firearms. One doofus talks about how he'd totally put the hurt on any real American heroes, tearing some thing that starts with SH when Snake taps him on his noggin to remind him that language isn't suited for this book. It's a funny scene, but apparently gives another nearby goon time to call in a red alert, so having lost the element of surprise, the Joes open fire. Huh, those are funny-looking lasers. They aren't red or blue. Zanya directs her troops to man the turrets and contacts Destro on the attack, before leaving things to Major Blood so she can protect her dad. Blood reports that they're being attacked from the south, and need more fighters to maintain their stations. I guess the feed of a rambling Cobra commander is getting under his shiny skin because Destro unsubscribes by punching the monitor. Still nicer than some YouTube comments. He claims to have been momentarily distracted, blaming it on not seeing battle for a while, and will be sending Armada and some Grenadiers. Snake Eyes and Scarlet's squad fall into a pit trap filled with alligators set by someone that's been stalking them.
Remember me? Probably not. No one ever remembers Zartan's brother Xandar.
Look, it's not our fault your toy didn't sell. Maybe people just got sick of yet another family member villain whose name begins with ZA. Just stops being catchy after a while. He tranquilizes the commanders, though it takes a clobbering from a bruiser called Road Pig to put the ninjas' lights out. Seeing enemies on the roof with his captured comrades, Stalker takes aim, but a recruit pushes him out of the way of a hiss tank and takes enemy fire, sacrificing himself. The issue ends with Destro and his crew escaping with the abducted Joes. Then we get some more bonus art, a fun one with Roadblock cooking, and a more serious painted one of Destro posing with a high-tech boomstick. You know that's going to be his dating profile pic if it isn't already. Anyway, this issue was alright, with pacing being mostly well-maintained. I say mostly because it has instances of scenes changing mid-page, sometimes 1 or 2 panels from one scene, then jumping to an entirely new scene. I've seen it plenty of times, and it's not always bad, but I do find it a kind of pet peeve when it feels off, at least to me. And it did kind of jump with the passage of time, with hours, days, or weeks passing abruptly in between panels. I can understand if they want to be concise and not get into every single detail. Even so, the training does feel kind of rushed for the newbies, but it's mostly to show how some of them have some talent and potential. A few nameless ones get killed off, not that we can get really invested in them, but it does show the stakes, clearly showing more seriousness than the cartoon, but I can't say how consistent it is or isn't from the Marvel comic it's continuing. Tune in next week to find out how the Joes recover from this loss, what the deal is with Destro, and if the Joe team learns a weekend of training may not be enough to fight terrorists. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.